Good day. We are coming on the air with breaking news about the death of an American music icon. Prince, the innovative, one-of-a-kind artist who's given us so much great music over the decades, has been found dead.
Planning Paisley Park, and we realized if we're going to have a vault, let's have a vault. Because if we get, I don't know, if we get a tornado, if we get a flood, this is his legacy. We need to protect these things.
For 40 years, Prince gave fans the hits, the shows, the image that became part of pop culture, and everything in between. But he kept one thing hidden from the spotlight. At Paisley Park, behind doors few were ever allowed to approach, he created a private world completely different from the image his fans knew. When he passed away in 2016, that door was finally opened. What waited inside revealed a side of him few fans had ever seen. So who was Prince when the stage lights went dark? And what was he protecting from the spotlight all those years? Join us as we uncover the secrets discovered inside Prince Nelson's garage after his death. The door no one opened. To the world, Paisley Park was Prince. Fans traveled from around the globe just to stand outside the gates, convinced they were looking at the very core of his creativity. Yet, there was one building almost no one talked about. From the outside, the garage seemed strangely ordinary. There were no murals, no windows, and none of the artistic flair that defined the rest of the estate. There was just a set of heavy doors that stayed permanently shut, year after year. Visitors noticed it immediately. The structure was far too large to be a simple place to park cars. Still, no one was invited inside. Whenever the subject came up, Prince would smile, offer a playful remark, and move the conversation elsewhere. Even those closest to him respected the boundary. That was exactly how he wanted it. Unlike many celebrities, Prince had little interest in displaying his wealth. Privacy mattered more to him than the attention that came with fame. He wanted at least one place that belonged entirely to him, a space untouched by expectations, cameras, or the demands of fame. And as the years passed, the mystery only deepened. Delivery trucks kept arriving at odd hours, carrying items few people understood. Prince himself often disappeared into the building late at night, sometimes remaining there until sunrise, with no calls, no visitors, and no interruptions. For him, that place became a refuge. On stage, he was vibrant, but behind those doors he could simply create, think, and be alone. Those who knew him understood that he rarely acted without purpose. If he was protecting this place so carefully, there had to be a reason. After his passing in 2016, the silence surrounding the garage finally ended. As the staff at Paisley Park prepared to preserve his legacy, they realized that whatever lay inside needed the same protection as his music itself. One of them later recalled the feeling: if they were going to build a vault, it had to withstand anything. Because this was Prince's legacy. It soon became clear that the garage was far more than storage. When the locks finally turned, the atmosphere inside felt almost sacred, as though the room had been waiting for this moment for decades. The discovery was about far more than possessions. It offered a glimpse into the private world Prince had guarded so fiercely all his life. The public knew the dazzling performer. What waited behind those doors belonged to the man himself. And the first thing they saw glowing in the dim light was unmistakably purple. In that instant, everyone understood that this was no ordinary garage. So why had Prince spent decades protecting what lay beyond that first discovery? The purple machine and the road to freedom. The cameras loved Prince on stage, but rarely captured who he was away from it. The first thing waiting inside that locked garage wasn't loud or extravagant. It was small, unmistakably purple, and had been preserved for decades. It was the Honda CM400A from Purple Rain. What stunned everyone was not simply its presence, but its condition. Though decades had passed, the motorcycle remained remarkably preserved, almost frozen in time. Every single detail had been maintained with care. This was no forgotten movie prop. It was something Prince had deliberately kept close. He had never chosen the purple Honda to project power. Standing just 5 feet 3 inches, he preferred a motorcycle that suited him more, something practical, something he could comfortably ride through the streets of Minneapolis. And ride it he did. Around the bike were the traces of those rides. It had worn leather jackets, helmets, and riding gear he had clearly used. Together they told a quieter story of who he was behind the camera, one far removed from the stage. Here was a man searching for freedom, privacy, and a moment where he could simply be himself. The garage held more than the famous Honda. Beneath custom covers rested other motorcycles the public had never seen. Vintage cruisers, sleek sport bikes, and carefully chosen classics. Each one revealed a different side of him. To the world, Prince was a performer built for spectacle. Yet in private, he surrounded himself with machines made for solitude, for open roads, and for escape. It is striking to imagine that at the height of his fame, while millions wanted a piece of him, he would slip away for late-night rides with no entourage and no cameras, only the sound of the engine beneath him. The purple Honda stood near the entrance, almost as if it were welcoming visitors into a story Prince had never shared aloud. It marked the moment he transformed from a gifted musician into a global icon, and he preserved it because that chapter clearly mattered to him. Today, the motorcycle means something more. It is not merely a relic from a film. As his fame grew, so did his need to escape it. Because deeper in the garage, beyond the helmets and leather jackets, stood a collection that revealed where Prince's true obsession lay. And it had nothing to do with motorcycles. What, exactly, had he been chasing in those cars? The Thunderbird and the little red Corvette. To fans, Prince drove whatever looked cool on an album cover. But inside the garage, the cars told a different story, a more personal one. The first thing that stood out was the lineup. 5 Ford Thunderbirds parked in perfect order, 1960s and 1980s, like a timeline on wheels. And usually, few collectors arrange cars that way. That's how someone tells a story to themselves. Prince grew up in Minneapolis, in a working-class family. And back then, a Thunderbird meant something. It wasn't just a car. It represented independence, style, and proof that you had made it on your own terms. Sources close to Paisley Park said Prince admired them as a kid, so he spent years tracking them down and restoring each one to original specs. Each Thunderbird had been researched, rebuilt, and maintained. Specialists were hired who knew the exact parts for each model year. Because Prince didn't want close enough, he wanted it just right. But the sound systems gave it away. Every single Thunderbird had custom high-quality audio installed. Because these weren't museum pieces, he drove them. And when he drove, he listened to music, his music, testing it and feeling it in a completely different space than the stage. And then, at the center of it all, was the one car everyone knew. The little red Corvette. This was the emotional centerpiece of the whole collection. The Corvette that helped inspire his 1982 breakthrough hit. The song that took him from cult favorite to the Billboard Hot 100, and he kept it in the exact same condition, like a time capsule. What made it heavier was what was inside. There were handwritten lyrics, musical notes, and original cassette tapes labeled in Prince's handwriting with dates and locations. He had used the Corvette as a mobile songwriting studio parked somewhere quiet in Minneapolis, working on ideas. The small interior, the seat adjusted perfectly for his frame, the worn controls. This was a car he actually lived in creatively. While the world heard Little Red Corvette on the radio, Prince was still going back to the source, literally sitting in that seat, still pulling inspiration from the place where it started. Most artists sell the car after they make it big, but Prince preserved it. Because losing that car would have felt like losing the moment his career changed. Publicly, Prince looked like he was always moving forward with a new sound, a new look, and a new era every year. Privately, he was holding on to the things that made him. The Thunderbirds were about where he came from, while the Corvette was about how he broke through. And both of them were hidden behind locked doors for decades. But cars can only tell you so much about a man. Wired into the back wall of the garage was proof that Prince wasn't just remembering the past. He was building the future. So what was connected to those vehicles? The Mobile Command Center. Parked in the back of the garage was a massive custom Prevost bus. Outwardly, it looked like any other luxury tour bus that's big, black, and anonymous-looking. Yet this wasn't just for sleeping. It was Prince's home, his office, his studio, and his entire life on wheels. What shocked the team cataloging the garage was the condition it was found in. It looked decades old, with thousands of miles on it from the height of his touring years, and yet every surface was immaculate. Surprisingly, the interior no longer resembled a bus, as the passenger area had been completely ripped out and rebuilt into a mobile recording studio with professional-grade equipment including keyboards, synthesizers, and recording devices, which were upgraded constantly over the years. He could write a riff in Chicago and have a demo by the time they hit Detroit. He could hear a melody at 2 a.m. and lay it down before sunrise. And that's why the bus mattered. It meant he never had to wait for inspiration or lose an idea to a hotel room or a sound check. The bedroom was custom-built for him. Small, but with everything in its place. The kitchen had specialized equipment to keep his diet while on the road. This wasn't luxury for luxury's sake. And then there was the tech. Satellite phones, early computer systems, and communication gear that let him run his business from anywhere in the country. Storage compartments were filled with tour memories, including concert footage, notes, and other documentation. Beyond transport, the bus was an archive, a rolling record of every stage he'd ever played on. To fans, going on tours seems glamorous and something the average person looks forward to. But in reality, it is pressure, constant motion, and constant scrutiny. But the strangest discovery came last. Tucked into the electrical systems were hidden cables, thick ones, running from the bus toward the rear wall of the garage. That one detail changed everything completely. Because a bus doesn't need to be wired into a building unless that building is part of the same system. Unless the bus was just one piece of something bigger. The public saw Prince leave Paisley Park for a tour, then come back. What they didn't see was that he never really left. He brought the studio with him, and then he brought it home and connected it to something even bigger. The bus wasn't the end of it. It was a tunnel, and it led to a room no one even knew existed. So, what was on the other side of that wall? The hidden studio and secret archives. The moment the team followed those cables past the bus, they understood why. Prince hadn't just been releasing music, he'd also been secretly hiding it. Just behind the back wall of the garage, there was a door. It was neither marked strangely, nor did it have any blueprint fans had seen. It was just another regular door that opened into a climate-controlled room that looked more like a vault than a studio. And this was it, the real reason the garage existed in the first place. Inside were huge shelves, row after row, from the floor to ceiling. They contained collections of hard drives, tape machines, boxes labeled in Prince's handwriting with dates, locations, and song titles. There were original master recordings, unreleased tracks, alternate versions, and live recordings from shows no one knew were being filmed. Some sources close to the estate said the number was well into the thousands, enough music to release an album every year for decades and still not run out. While fans believed Prince was prolific, these private collections show he was obsessive. The studio wasn't built to impress visitors, but built to protect what he held most dear. It was soundproofed, climate-controlled, and carefully backed up. Because this was his legacy. As staff later said, if there was a tornado, if there was a flood, this was his legacy. We needed to protect these things. And he did. The archive wasn't chaotic. It was carefully organized by era, project, and mood. There were notebooks with lyrics, cassette demos, full band recordings, solo experiments, piano ballads that never saw daylight. While he wasn't stockpiling for ego, he was stockpiling because he didn't trust the industry to handle his art. Prince spent years fighting record labels over ownership and control, over when and how his music came out. So he made a choice. If they wouldn't let him release it his way, he'd keep it his way. And that's what this room represented. He had it as a place no executive could tell him that's not commercial enough, where no deadline could force him to put something out before it was ready. The public saw the hits, but they didn't see the burnout of having to constantly feed a machine that wanted more. And this room was conveniently his answer to that pressure. And the emotional weight hit everyone who walked in, not because these weren't unfinished ideas. These were finished songs, well polished and mixed. Some even had cover art sketched. That was a huge collection of music he loved, but intentionally chose not to share. Looking back now, interviews and performances are different. All those times he walked on stage and held back, he wasn't out of ideas. He was protecting them. The garage wasn't merely a garage, neither was the bus, just another bus. They were tunnels leading to this, a place where his creativity remained untouched, protected from any form of interference. The one place in the world where Prince got to decide everything. But keeping all that music secret came with a cost. And the last thing they found in the archives explained exactly what he was trying to keep away from the spotlight. So what was it about this collection that he never wanted the world to see? The man behind the vault. For 4 decades, fans saw the same Prince in purple and fearless. He was a symbol. He was his own brand. The cameras showed success. They did not show the exhaustion behind it. Because inside that garage, his story was different. And no, it wasn't about cars. It wasn't about motorcycles. It wasn't even about the music. It was about control. Prince grew up watching the industry chew people up. He watched artists lose their masters, their money, and their creative control. So he decided early on that no one gets in without permission. Not to his music, not to his home, and definitely not to him. And this was the reason why no one was allowed in the garage, why trucks came at night. It's also clearly the reason why he would disappear for hours. His public image was loud, but he intentionally kept his private reality quiet. Friends have said in later interviews and podcasts that Prince valued privacy above almost anything. Fame gave him everything, but it also took everything. So he carved out one space where he could just be a person, not Prince, not anyone's product. But he could just be a normal guy from Minneapolis who loved cars, loved bikes, loved working on music at 3 a.m. The Thunderbirds were his childhood. The Corvette marked his breakthrough. The Honda was the moment everything changed. The bus was every tour he survived, and the hidden vault was every song he refused to let someone else ruin. Losing control of his music didn't just hurt his career. It destroyed his trust. So he built a system where that could never happen again. And that's what he was trying to keep away from the spotlight. He was trying hard to protect the version of him that the world demanded. The one that had to always be on. The one that had to always release, tour, promote, repeat. In that garage, he got to be slow. He got to be private. Looking back now, fans see those late-night disappearances in a completely different way. He wasn't trying to be mysterious. He was simply guarding the few pieces of his life that still belonged only to him, away from contracts, cameras, expectations, and the endless, exhausting, unrelenting demands of worldwide superstardom and public scrutiny alike. At its core, this story was really about what fame can do to a person over time. How much of yourself you have to hide just to keep any of yourself left. By the time people realized how much he was protecting, it was already too late. The door was finally opened, and what was inside didn't just rewrite the story of his cars. It rewrote the story of the man. Did opening that garage honor Prince? Or did it expose the very thing he spent his life trying to protect? Do you think he would have wanted it to remain hidden forever? Or eventually be shared with the world? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.